Carter, the Power Bryant. Good evening, good sir. How are we tonight?
Blake, on the best show in Louisiana. So happy to be with you on a glorious Monday. Lots of things to talk about. Here, you got the NFL playoffs going on and a lot of news with the LSU Tiger Tackle football team.
Yeah, and I know Tampa just scored. It could be the Saints.
I know. I'm telling you.
That's what pisses me off. As Tampa's up 10-0 right now, that's what pisses me off, Carter. Fire Dennis Allen. Can I just do a Christmas miracle? Carter, can I tell you something? Dennis Allen sits when he pees.
Oh, man. I couldn't agree more. And the thing is,
when he pees?
Yeah, that, and even more so, not even discussing the Buccaneers, but it's crazy when you saw what Green Bay did to Dallas yesterday. And the Saints are nowhere close to Green Bay. And what did Green Bay have? They have a nice, young, exciting quarterback, lots of youth at skilled positions, and they have someone that actually knows how to call plays. They have an offensive-minded head coach. But no, the Saints say, look, we're going to run it back, crappiest OC in the NFL, aging team, and we're just going to burn a really good defense. So that's basically where we are right now.
We could be the Cowboys.
Now, that would be worse. That would be a lot worse.
God, they got their cheeks clapped yesterday. All right, Carter Bryant is joining us. Buddy, look, let's just start here because since the last time that we've had you on, Bo Davis has been hired, Kevin Peoples has been hired, and CJ Daniels has committed. Let's start with the staff first. Carter, I said that I thought of the front seven with the staff, I don't think that you could have hired a better staff than what you did. Am I wrong in saying that? Am I wrong in being as high as I am on this defensive staff?
It's crazy because your friend Big Game Boomer, of course, had them 1 and 2 as the best defensive line coaches in America. Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples, they're really good. If you want to turn the clock way back to when Arkansas had those great teams, Kevin Peoples was on that staff then. The guy has squeezed a lot of juice out of everywhere he's been.
Out of guys, Carter, that aren't really highly recruited dudes.
Right. And so this is Kevin Peoples I'm referring to. Obviously, Bo Davis is Bo Davis. He's been one of the best defensive line coaches in the country for a long time. There's a reason why Texas was paying him $1 million a year, and there's a reason why LSU is giving him more than that to come back home. So, Blake, he couldn't have done better than that. And a lot of people have been wondering, well, you know what? We were not getting the high-profile transfers. I'm so glad that they went on ahead and got the staff solidified. You're not going to get any high-profile transfers if the transfers don't know who they're playing for yet defensively. I would prefer to pay the coaches before you actually decide to deal out any deals for any big-name transfers that are out there. Now that you're putting together your defensive staff, and they will get a good defensive back coach, hopefully in the near future, then you can go get some big-name transfers. But obviously, going for Blake Baker to now building the defensive line, you went from a defensive staff last year, Blake, where you had one very young coach in Steeples, but the other coaches really didn't have an elite sterling track record at their previous stops. It was one of the big reasons why I was anti-Matt House from the get-go. But these guys that they have hired have recently been at the very top of their profession at their last stops. So this is a good day and a good period to be an LSU Tiger football fan.
Carter, let's stay on them for just a moment. They got an uphill battle when it comes to personnel in the interior of that defense, though.
They do, Blake. I mean, it's a mess, and you know, if you're Jacobian Guillory or Jalen Lee, you're getting the golden opportunity here to take that next step, even though. In particular, Jalen Lee, he's not really done a whole lot as a Division I Power 5 football player. This is it, okay? And I don't think that they want to start Dominic McKinley from day one or Sean Washington from day one. So Obviously, some misses in recruiting obviously hurt that room, and 3 really talented players going to the NFL also hurt this room. It would have been really nice to have Mason Smith back, but he decided to go to the NFL as well. So, yeah, Blake, it stinks, but hopefully the new defensive line coaches can take them to the next level. And it's not just DT, Blake, it's the ends as well. That's got to get better because last year, as you know, as a former offensive lineman, LSU just could not set the edge. It was really bad.
Well, Carter, I think Blake Baker comes in here and wins the argument or discussion with Brian Kelly on using Harold Perkins more out there. And I think he finds ways to protect Perk in the run game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Blake. It's and I know what a lot of people would say, and you and I know this just from experience, watching Harold Perkins. Stopping the run is not his big thing. We saw it in particular in the A&M and Georgia game from 2 years prior. But LSU didn't stop the run last year. They didn't set the edge last year. And one selling point to Harold Perkins could be, look, if you can become better at defending the edge versus a run, your NFL draft stock goes through the roof because we know he's got the traits to be a really good edge rusher. And hopefully with new defensive line tutelage, his pass rush move arsenal becomes a little bit more varied moving forward. But, you know, as far as Harold Perkins, I would like to see him play closer to the line of scrimmage next season to get him to what he does best, which is destroying the other team's game plans.
CJ Daniels commits to LSU, the Liberty wide receiver. You did a film breakdown on him. Everybody go to Carter's YouTube channel and watch that. Carter, what do you make of CJ Daniels? And I know that there was a lot of discussion on why are we going after a wide receiver? Well, because you don't have a lot of proven guys in there more than this kid.
Yeah, and look, Blake, historically for me, so I grade every single player that comes in, whether you're a transfer or high school. I want to get my own eyes to get my own eval. And obviously CJ Daniels was, you know, the most high profile guy. So he moved up the list. So I watched a good bit of him. And Blake, I grade wide receivers harder because that's the hardest position to play at LSU because there's just so many guys and there's only so many targets. And it's been LSU's best position group of the past decade. So I thought he was good. I really do. Obviously, there are a few things that do stand out. Level of competition is what everyone will point out. Also, he did line up to the right, and a lot of his plays were down the right sideline. Obviously, with Cortez Hankton and Brian Kelly, one thing that they value in wide receivers is knowing how to play all the positions and lining up wherever else, especially if Sloan's going to call plays a lot like Mike Denbrock. But that's something he will learn. I don't think that's really that big of a hurdle. But the one stat that really stood out to me is a stat called yards per route run, where it is very sticky, right? In fantasy and in real life. Guys that have good yard per route run numbers, it's pretty simple. How many receiving yards do you get divided by the amount of routes you run? CJ Daniels was number 1 in all of college football. There was not a receiver who was better at yards per route run. So if you go look at the yard per route run leaders, Blake, it's the elite guys only. It's Malik Neighbors, it's Marvin Harrison Jr., it's Ladd McConkey. Those were guys in the top 5, and those are 3 bona fide first, second, third round wide receivers in next year's NFL draft. CJ Daniels was number 1 in all of college football, and that number is very sticky. So if he can get over the hurdle,
what do you mean by sticky?
That means it's predictive. It means it's something that does translate, right? Because it's an efficiency thing.
Translates from like a Liberty to an LSU?
Right. It translates from level to level, of course. And look, it's going to be a huge step up going from Liberty in the Conference USA with a really good quarterback and a really good play caller to the SEC. That's going to be a jump. And there were a few things that stuck out to me that do concern me, but overall it was good. And yard per round run, it doesn't matter what level you play at. It's a hard stat to conquer. And there were some times where their quarterback, Caden Salter, is a really good player, missed him or misled him.
Ass open.
Right. So the Oregon game,
open, right.
Yeah, the Oregon game, there's an early shot that he missed. There was another versus Bowling Green.
That kid from Oregon's going to be a late first, high second round pick.
Yeah, and
right.
I thought Daniels' game versus Oregon had some really high ups and some really low downs in that one. But it was good to see him play versus an elite opponent. And the one thing I really liked about the Oregon film in particular is he blocked well. And that's
gonna be my next question.
Right. He is a pretty good and willing blocker. Now, is he a Kyron Lacey level? Probably not, but his blocking reps for the most part were really good.
Surprised they took a wide receiver? Because I mean, look, it was the number one question I fielded all weekend, and I was like, I mean, Carter, the thing that I said was no. I mean, I think you have a lot of talent in that room. I don't think you have one guy not named Kyron Lacey that's proven. I know what I can get from a Xavion Thomas. Look, Aaron Anderson, I might have been wrong on. Okay, like I might have been wrong on Aaron Anderson. I think Shelton Sampson is doing some good things. I might be wrong on Shelton Sampson, but are you in the boat with me? I'm just not judging what they do from a personnel standpoint offensively. I kind of refuse to.
Yeah, so roster numbers are a little bit different. So this is going to be the first year that BK is really going to have to worry about that 85 number. Okay, good. And that is a good thing because
I'd rather cut kids than not have enough.
And that's a hard part about it. We can get into a philosophical debate about if that's an ethical thing to do, but it's cutthroat. It's a division. I mean, this is LSU, right? I'm not shocked that they took a receiver, Blake. I'm not. It does say what LSU feels about the rest of the room, though. They still like them. But if you don't know for certain that any one of those guys is going to take a massive leap next season, you needed to go get another guy, right? And CJ is a 6'2". He's not the same physical behemoth like a BTJ, but he's definitely physical. He's got the SEC body type to succeed at this next level. And Blake, you've got sources, you know this better than I do, but there are times when Shelton Sampson in particular in practice makes some dazzling plays against, obviously not so great secondary that he went up against, but you do see the talent, but it's not something that right? CJ Daniels has production, and with that production, I think he will give you a good floor. A guy like Shelton Sampson probably has a higher ceiling. Maybe some other guys in that room have a higher ceiling as well, but I am happy they went and got CJ Daniels, and I do think he'll be a solid player for LSU next year.
Look, I think that he had 8 catches, 80 yards maybe against Oregon. Him coming to an LSU with so Carter, he plays better competition. I think he's got a better quarterback with a higher passing upside.
Yeah, I mean, so Caden Salter I actually like a lot. He is a really good quarterback, but he's a different type of quarterback than Gary.
I agree, but it's like saying, okay, how do I want to say this? No, I can't use that. It's like using a more polished Robbie Ashford with Salter, a kid that's a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, I actually do think Salter will at the very least get drafted in the next draft.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but yeah, you can't deny that from a pure passing standpoint, I think Garrett is vastly superior from throwing the football than Salter is.
I agree with that. No, I do. And, here's something else, right? Playing with Garrett Nussmeier is a very attractive thing if you're a wide receiver.
No doubt.
Right.
Let me to source something really quickly. They have turned some dudes down that want to be here. Okay. Yeah. And I think that goes to show, look, let me stay with me here for just a second, Carter. You brought up something in reference to roster numbers. What's that conversation like with Cortez Hankton and Brian Kelly? Hey, coach, I know we got a crap load of receivers. Will you take a look at this guy? I want him really bad, but I'm not going to pull the trigger until you give me the go-ahead that I have an extra spot. So it's not just Cortez that makes this decision. You got to go to the head coach, and he's got to woo every goddamn body. It's not just a wide receiving coach that's like, oh, well, why does Cortez got to bring a guy in? They thought so highly of the kid. Okay. Regardless if he works here or not, it's just what they had to have done to give up an extra roster spot to get him in here.
Yeah. And here's something, Blake, that is frustrating a lot of LSU fans. And this has been filled already with the CJ Daniels film study I've done. Well, we need other things more than we need wide receivers. Well, this is just the truth of the transfer portal. There's more receivers and skill guys than anywhere else, right?
Right.
There's not as many great defensive tackles. There's not as many great offensive linemen. There's not as many great pure tight ends. It's just it's all levels of football. There's a lot of guys out there that can go catch a pass, and like you said, LSU had to be very selective who they were going to get. So they have to really like CJ Daniels, and they do. They really, really, really do. And you saw this also with Isaiah Bond, right? Jalen Milroe, Milroe targeted him a lot, but
Right.
Isaiah wanted to go to a pocket quarterback who's actually someone that throws a football at a high level. Now, I hated that he did that, but he did it. So it's crazy to see Garrett Nussmeier get this much respect, and he deserves it because the CJ Daniels knows that Garrett Nussmeier will put it on the money, and then I'm looking forward to that connection next year.
Carter, there are some players that are in the portal right now. I know that you do not have a DB coach, but a guy like Desmond Ricks that officially hit the portal today. Number one, do you think you go back after a guy like Desmond Ricks? Clearly, I think that you do. How difficult do you think it is with not having DB's coach?
It is very hard. I'll push a little bit back on the Desmond Ricks thing, just a little bit for this. You do need as many DBs as you possibly can. It's just they've taken a lot of DBs who've not played a lot recently, and Desmond Ricks is also another guy who's not played a whole lot. I think they need to go get somebody bona fide who has put out good Division I tape to bring into this DB room. I'm very much open to Desmond Ricks, especially if you can get a few extra roster spots. It was tough to play corner at Alabama this year. They were very good at corner with Terrion Arnold and, of course, Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think Ricks can play at a Division I Power 5 level. It's just they need on all levels of the defense some guys that have Power 5 proven experience.
I agree with you.
Now, it's hard. It's going to be very hard. But it's not only the fact that you need starter. I knew it. I knew it.
Continue.
But they do need to bring in extra guys just for depth reasons, right? LSU is struggling right now for us to feel comfortable about a first string. In the SEC, it's not about a first string. It's about the second string. It's about a 2.5 string, right? To have an extra guy on top of the second string that you could put in as well. That's what made the great defenses at LSU.
All right, everybody, do us a favor by hitting that like and share. I feel like I'm missing something pretty vastly here. What am I missing?
I don't know. I just enjoyed chatting, man.
Okay. Let's get to that last, and we'll. I got one for you. I know what I missed. Two things. Let's get back to staff for just a minute. If it was Corey Raymond, would they have hired him by now?
I don't believe that, Blake. I really don't. Here's one thing people don't quite understand about coaches. Okay, the actual number that you're paying these guys matters. Okay, so you have Bo Davis coming in, and now Bo Davis is making a lot of money. Now, it's not a fact that LSU doesn't have the money to give Bo Davis that contract. It's, well, if he's the guy, then what is the right number for Joe Sloan's promotion? What would be the right number for a DB coach, right? So you've got to keep everybody happy when it comes to these contract situations. And with Corey Raymond the last time, there was money was a big thing towards the end of Corey Raymond's tenure, right? Because he wasn't the highest paid DB coach, but he was still getting paid pretty well, 500-ish K, whatever the number was. So I don't fully believe that. But I just think it's anyone at this point. Obviously, I hate it that Georgia got T-Rob. I think he was the best guy out there. I thought it was kind of bizarre that he goes back and interviews with Alabama and then goes back. But yeah, Blake, what do you think? Do you think Corey would have already? Do you think it would have already been sealed by now?
I just don't know.
I don't either.
I really just don't know. There are parts of I understand the argument. I understand the Carter. I understand both sides of it. It just feels like you hired Bo Davis. Okay, you hired Kevin Peoples, but like, what is taking so long? Is it just the money? Because here's another truth. You ready? He also just got fired.
I keep going back to this, Blake. All right. Once again, the hardest thing for a fan to evaluate is defensive back play because you as a fan don't have all 22. And a lot of secondary play, Blake, is if this guy does this, I do this, right? So it's hard to, point out blame in a coverage bus if you don't know the coverage rules, especially since Nick Saban changed everything. There's a lot of split field coverage stuff that not the normal fan can relate to, right? So it's hard to put blame if any DB coach has struggled, right? But this is just a fact that the passing defenses of the last secondaries Corey Raymond as coach have not been great. This is not a hatred towards Corey Raymond. This is not you saying this. This is not necessarily me being pro or against Corey. It's just the truth, Blake. You've shared the numbers on your channel. I've shared it on my channel. So there is some cause for concern before you actually make this move, even though if you do make this move, it would be popular. And a lot of people in Tigerland would love you forever if you brought Corey Raymond back.
Tommy Reese is not going to be retained by Alabama.
Nor should he be. Nor should he be. And it's not necessarily, Blake, that he stunk. All right. He was
okay.
Fun.
Well, okay, we'll get to the play calling in just a minute that he had. You don't think that there's a conversation about him making him an analyst at minimum?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think people understand how much Brian Kelly loves Tommy Reese.
I know that's what but Carter, go ahead. Go on.
No. Look, there is a piece of Brian Kelly that would love nothing more to get Tommy back. Okay. All right. And and I understand that there would be pushback from some people watching this channel right now. Well, Carter, BK won't like Tommy because Tommy turned him down and then he went to Alabama. That's not really how coaches feel about certain things, right? Brian Kelly looks at Tommy probably like he looks at as a son, right? Tommy Reese owes his coaching career to this man, right? And there's something to be said about Brian Kelly giving one of his former players, one of his first quarterbacks, his start in the coaching profession, and then that guy reached the pinnacle, which is being an OC at Notre Dame and being an OC at Alabama. I think Brian Kelly would love to have Tommy Reese back on his staff. But I would also say this, Blake, they should not make him the OC. This should be Joe Sloan's job. Joe called a brilliant game versus Wisconsin, which is the single most important job. He just got the best recruit in LSU football history in Bryce Underwood. So Joe Sloan has got to be the guy. And anyone that argues to the contrary is just not making a good argument at all.
Both men's and women's basketball fall to Auburn. I was actually intrigued by some of the stuff I saw from the men's team because I think Auburn is one of the best SEC teams out there in men's basketball. Dude, what happened with Angel Reese and this team on Sunday?
Yeah, that was for me, Blake, and as my buddy Sherry Berry and a few others, they sit and watch every single women's basketball game, every second of it.
Just don't talk about it all the time, but I
Yeah,
do.
I don't watch every single second. A lot of the games fall on the same times I do live streams and stuff like that. But when I get the chance to watch, I watch. And like that was the worst played, worst coached second half in the recent Kim Mulkey tenure, right?
Ooh.
So I think they're going to bounce back. One of these tough road games was going to happen. This is typical college basketball stuff where a premium team loses to a team that's not that good at all. When every game is a sellout and you're the Beatles everywhere you go, the target's on your back, you have one uncharacteristically bad game, and they still almost won it. Okay, so I'm not panicking on it. I still think they're going to go to the Final Four and win it all. So
Oh,
let's do it. I don't want to hear any Haley Van List slander. She's got a injury she's dealing with. Okay, I know she's not playing well.
fasciitis.
I know. Just get off of her. Michaela Williams had her first poor game at LSU. These two are going to bounce back. Flage's playing well. Morrow's playing well. And I know a lot of people had a lot to say about that final play with Angel Reese. I get why they did what they did. It's just you needed to space the floor a little bit better. So Kim's going to get this thing back on the right track, and this team's going to get it done.
You ever heard of the rapper called Big Sean?
Yeah.
Last night took an L, but tonight I bounce back. You know, that's what I feel with this ladies team. They're like a Big Sean song. Last night took an L, but tonight I bounce back. So
hey, you got it right there. That's good. Now leave the lyrics to Flage. How about that?
Yeah, I'll leave it. We do have a super chat here, actually, too. Rodney D with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Rodney. And Blanche Hudson says, "Did Kelly nearly get fired this year?" Pate responded to a comment I made for not including Kelly as one of the faces of college football. Did I miss something? Carter did. I mean, Brian Kelly ain't almost get fired. I mean, did I miss something?
No.
Okay.
I know Blanche pretty well. I no. Brian Kelly is on one of the safer seats in college football, especially with what's coming for 2025 and 2026. I'm excited, and everyone watching this should be too. Let's go.
See you next Monday, buddy.